Hey, how you doing? Today we're going to talk about a very specific aspect of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but we're going to talk about it from the perspective of someone who came to BJJ through catch wrestling. There are a lot of polarised opinions within the BJJ community on the subject of wristlocks. Whether you're on social media, on Reddit or other discussion forums, or even just hanging out in the pub with the folk you train with, if the discussion turns to the subject of wristlocks, then more often than not, things start to get a little heated. And that's because it's a pretty commonly held opinion that wristlocks are dirty techniques, and no one should do them. As you might expect, with my background, I think that's ridiculous, and I'm going to explain why. But before I do that, let's take a look at some of the reasons why people might think they aren't acceptable techniques. Firstly, and I think this is probably one of the biggest reasons, is that they hurt. Now, every limb-based submission hurts. That's kind of how they work. But with most of them, you have a dull, aching type pain that builds as the submission's applied. Initially, it only hurts a little, and then if you fail to get out of the hold, the level of pain increases to the point where you tap, because you know something is likely to get damaged if you don't. Yes, some people put on submissions hard and fast, but in general, outside of competition, that's simply a sign of either poor technique or insecurity about how well they've isolated the limb. But wristlocks are a little different. There's very little between your wrist bending in a way that's perfectly natural and doesn't hurt at all, and it feeling like your hand is about to get snapped off. However careful you are, they go on pretty fast, and to people who aren't used to them, it can feel like the person putting them on is not showing you any respect. Therefore, it must be dirty. The second reason I think they're often frowned upon is that they're so easy to get. You attack with your hands, you defend with your hands, you frame with your hands, you take holds to try and control with your hands. You absolutely cannot hide your hands if you're grappling. And so when you come across someone who likes to wristlock and is good at it, it can feel like whatever you do, you're gonna get caught. And people don't like that. They associate that feeling with being a brand new white belt, and god damn it, they're a whatever colour they happen to be belt. It can be disheartening to get caught so easily, especially when the thing you get caught with bloody hurts. And as if that wasn't bad enough, you didn't even make them fight for it. 1 minute you're framing to sweep them, and the next you're tapping. So instead of taking it as an opportunity to up their game, they simply try and remove the technique. The third reason is grappling snobbery. There are trends in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. A few years back, everyone was talking about leg locks, and now they're just part of the game. But back then, when people were looking to catch and sambo to see what they could adapt and integrate, there were plenty of people saying leg locks weren't proper Jiu-Jitsu. They were dangerous, and plenty of clubs won't let lower belts do them. The fact is that some people don't like anything new, especially when that new thing upsets the apple cart. In reality, when leg locks started coming into BJJ, people were trying to catch them from all over the place, and some people got hurt. The same way wristlocks are now. But as people developed their skill and worked out exactly how to secure control before putting them on, they slowly started to become part of the general BJJ library of techniques. That's where we are with wristlocks right now. They're still a little bit wild, there's not a lot of control, but we're getting there. I promised earlier to explain why it is I think the idea of wristlocks being dirty is ridiculous, so here goes. From my perspective, grappling, whether it's catch wrestling, sambo, BJJ or any other form, is the most effective way of physically dominating your opponent in a fight. I've had the argument about not going to the ground and the floor being a nasty place covered in broken glass, swarms of killer bees and landmines many times, and I think it's as ridiculous an argument now as I ever did. Being able to control and defeat your opponent in a physical contest is the whole point of it, and pretending bits of the fight don't count is as ridiculous for self-defense as it is for grappling in the gym. The fact is that as soon as you start removing techniques from your arsenal, then you lose any right to claim that what you do is effective as a fighting system. It isn't. It's simply an athletic contest. Now, I don't have a problem with that per se. If you want to do limited grappling, go for it. If you want to play badminton, that's absolutely fine. If Morris dancing is your thing, then I really hope you enjoy it. but let's not pretend that it's an effective rounded system of fighting. In reality, the same applies for a lot of things. If you aren't spending at least a little time learning how to deal with strikes or takedowns from standing, then the same applies. When I first got into catch wrestling, I was lucky enough to train with a legendary Billy Robinson, and he was an absolute master of sneaky, painful submissions that you might not see anywhere else. He never taught a wrist lock while I was there, but he did show several things just as painful, just as easy to get, and just as dirty. And he constantly emphasised the importance of maintaining hand control, not letting somebody get your hands and being able to control their hands. If you understand that the technique is there, you know how it's done, and therefore how to defend against it. Then it stops being dirty and starts just being another way of finishing a fight. That's the whole point of catch wrestling as taught by Billy. It's not that you learned a collection of techniques, but that you learned the principles of controlling your opponent. You learned how to learn. And that, to me, is why you can't remove techniques just because you don't like them. And that's without even starting to discuss the amazing coach Wade Challers's approach to legal pain in order to get the pin. But that's probably for another time. So what about you? Those of you that grapple, do you use wrist locks? How do you feel about them? And if you don't grapple, don't think you get away with not answering. I still want to hear your opinion in the comments. Just like always, I'll do my best to reply to everyone. And if you feel like liking, sharing, subscribing if you aren't, then that would be amazing. It helps YouTube know to share videos like this one with other people who might like to see them too. Before I finish, I just want to quickly shout out and say thank you to Rich and Matt for the idea and inspiration for this video. You guys rock, and I can't wait for you to kick the living snot out of me on Tuesday night. Oh yeah, fight team!